this is 1 hour later. We're 20 meters further. That is 10 cars further. 10 cars passed in 1 hour. This is unbelievable. Everybody's super irritated, including us, including our little baby in the car. It's horrible. Hello everyone, it's Daphne, and today I have some stories for you. So bring your tea and enjoy the story of my cross-border adventure. First of all, I need to tell you how it all started, and if you find me to be a bit slow and lower beat than usual, it's because I am dead tired. I am sipping on my tea here to relax and be able to talk because my voice is a bit raspy. I don't know if that happens to you when you're tired. It does happen to me. It's also because I was smoking, which I don't normally do anymore, and I was in a car with the air conditioning blowing in my face for a very long time. So to start and tell you why I ended up in Turkey this week, I have a friend who is married with a Turkish man, and he's a very nice guy, and they recently got a baby like 3 months ago. And I don't know for what reason, and I hope I'm not upsetting her over this, but that's the reality. I don't know why he agreed that they should go on a holiday with such a young baby. So they went on holiday to Turkey with the car. They were going to stay for a while, visit his relatives, because now he's living with her here in Romania. And after the holiday, they started fighting, and she really has a temper. She's that type, very strongly opinionated. So last week, I think it was Wednesday, she called me and asked me whether I could come pick her up from Turkey. She wanted to drive back home, and well, he was staying there, so she asked me if I could fly there and we should drive back together. She was in Ankara. I checked online on Google Maps to see the distance. There are 1,000 kilometers between our hometown and Ankara. I live in Bucharest, that is 120 kilometers from our hometown. So the Google Maps app said that that could be driven in 12-13 hours. Now, I had been to Turkey before, but with the plane, that was many years ago, so it doesn't really count. I did know that they kind of drive like mad people. But yeah, she really had no option. Her mother doesn't have a driver's license, and she also doesn't have a passport. So, and her father doesn't drive her automatic car. I always am amused when people say they don't drive automatic, because I don't drive manual. I have no clue how to do it. I did learn to drive on a manual car, but as soon as I got into an automatic, everything was deleted from my memory. And also I have the nails, so for me, going back and forth with a gear switch is not really an option. So nobody could help her. She doesn't have brothers or sisters. She called me sister. So okay, I bought a ticket, and the idea was that I would fly from Bucharest to Istanbul, from Istanbul to Ankara, then she would pick me up and we would drive back to Romania. It was supposed to take us, like I said, 12-13 hours. Okay, I went on 15 hours, and then I told my own personal husband that it would be nice if he came to our hometown and waited for us there, and then me and him, we could drive back to Bucharest. All right, so on Thursday evening, I packed my stuff and I went to the airport. I have to say that the night before I slept for 6 hours because we went to bed kind of late, and then on Thursday morning I had an appointment with another one of my friends to go to the spa together. She was my guest, so I couldn't cancel that, right? So I woke up at 6:30 I had coffee, I had breakfast, I did my thing, and then I went to meet this friend, pick her up, and then we went to the spa. We were at the pool for the better of 3 hours, so I caught exactly that afternoon sun. That's why I am so radiant. I'm not sure you can see how tanned I am because I set the ISO on very high, so I don't need to use lights. So I was kind of tired being in the sun for a long time and being on the way, bringing people, carrying people. For me, that is very tiresome. Yeah, I am like that. I'm an introvert. I don't need agitation. I need things to be very quiet and soft around me. And if things aren't like that, if I get agitated, it all shows in my body. I mean, after the week that I've had, I think that my psoriasis is going to be all over me. So if I disappear for a while or if I upload older videos, you're going to know why. So I went to the pool with my friend. I drove her back to the subway and I tried to sleep a bit between 4 and 5. I couldn't really. Then I woke up and I packed a little backpack with a change of clothes, toothbrush, a few samples of creams and stuff that I was going to have with me on my trip. I brought my book, of course, and I went to the airport. Now, we were a bit late with that, and also the plane had a gate that was a bit far, so basically I didn't get to buy myself a drink or anything. I just hopped into that bus and then we went into the plane. The flight was very smooth, whatever, 1 hour to Istanbul, and then I arrived there and I had to wait for 3 hours for my connecting flight. Mind you, I was already feeling kind of tired. I walked around, I went and I got myself mint tea. I was determined not to drink a lot of caffeine, and I think it was a very smart choice because I would have been more wasted. Caffeine is not really good for me. So I went around. That was a small airport, not Atatürk, but the other, I don't remember, Sabah, something. So I didn't have what to do. I looked for some makeup. It's the same stuff that you find in all the duty-frees in Europe, nothing interesting. I expected to find something more oriental, you know, like they had in Dubai, but no. And then I sat down. I had a cake, something like a chocolate salami type of cake. It was delicious, and I had lemonade, but the lemonade was too sweet, so I mixed it with the mint tea that had no sugar, and I made a concoction there. Anyhow, that was what I drank, and then the hours slowly passed. I had my book with me, it was okay. Then I got into the other plane, and the plane was not fully booked, so I could lay down on one of the rows behind and try to get some sleep. To me, it feels like I closed my eyes for 1 minute and then the flight assistant was patting me on the back, asking me to get up because we have to land. I think that was also a very short flight. Finally, I got out. Of course, I had no luggage, so I just went through. Being a local flight, they didn't check my passport again. So then was my friend, desperate. She said, "Where have you been? I've been calling you." They told me that so on the internet it said that my flight was supposed to land at midnight and it landed at 1. So she spent 1 hour desperately trying to call me while my phone was off because I was in the air. And she was asking at the information gate, "Where is flight so-and-so?" And they said, "It landed 1 hour ago." And later they came to her and it said, "Yeah, we're sorry, our mistake. It didn't land yet." Anyway, we finally got together and she was with the baby, her baby boy in the back, and I had to babysit. Now you sometimes ask things like how I do stuff and whether I have kids. No, I don't have kids, and I also have nails. If I learned one thing from this trip is that long nails and babies don't add up. So I was supposed to feed him when he wasn't asleep, but luckily in the beginning, for the first 6 hours. He slept really like a baby. He was just minding his business. That was fine. And that was when she drove. And then just before Istanbul, we stopped for drinks and stuff. And the sun was almost getting up. It was nice, and he woke up, and she walked him around a bit there in the parking. It was still very pleasant outside, the temperature. And then I got behind the wheel because I said, listen, you know what, let me drive. I really enjoy driving in the morning. It's my favorite thing to do. So that's what we did. On the way to the border, all throughout Turkey, all night the highways were packed with people. It was like Holland at rush hour, really packed. And we kept wondering, what is this? What are all these people doing on the highway? What's their business? Everywhere, wherever we stopped in a parking lot, it was full. The lines to pay for gas were very long. People were on the highway, everybody. So what is wrong with it? Are these night birds like this? Why are these people here? No idea. I forgot to say, Turkey is not in the European Union. This means that my fees for mobile phone roaming and for data are incredibly high. So what I did, as soon as I arrived in Istanbul, I switched off my mobile data. So I had no internet, no WhatsApp, no nothing. I just had the phone. And I did call with my husband. I checked in to tell him that I was okay, blah, blah, blah. So we were basically without internet, and she did have the GPS of her car. But you know, GPSs from cars are not up to date. You need to renew them. So that was not a real-time type of information. Also, I normally use Google Maps for my GPS. For me, it works just fine. She had the destination put on the maps from the mobile phone. She had the phone with the Turkish card in its SIM card. So we didn't have any real-time information from that either. So we drove. Eventually we stopped again to feed the baby because, of course, the baby was getting bored after being so long in the car. And then again I said to her, listen, I don't want to feed him with the bottle because I am afraid I'm gonna stab him. You are driving very quickly, very fast, and the roads are with curves because we were getting in a bit of a mountainous area. We were off the highway. So I'm afraid that at the wrong move I'm gonna stab him, and I really don't want to do that. So how about I keep driving and you stay with him in the back, and maybe you can get some shut eye as well. She agreed. Normally when we go through customs, like from Greece to Bulgaria, from Bulgaria to Romania, it takes maybe half an hour. I've never seen it more busy than that. I have to admit that generally my husband likes to drive at night whenever we travel abroad by car. So if you arrive at the customs office around 1 or 2 a.m., it's perfectly clear. And generally when my husband is driving, I'm sleeping. So that's that. So we arrived in the customs, and we already saw that there was a very long queue, and there was nothing to do with it. It was on a hill like that. You could see how the cars were all lined up before the customs. It was just in a field. We had no idea how long the queue was or how long that would take. So we waited and waited. We tried to switch off the engine, but the car would get very hot because it was already 10 a.m. by then. We had some snacks with us that we had bought. We had water. The baby had his formula. We had diapers enough. So we waited and waited and waited and waited. And in front of us was a car with a Bulgarian couple. Floki, village. I wanted to have the nice roses in the background because I received them from my cleaning lady, who is such a sweetheart, and she also made me cakes while I was away, so that was super cute. She brought me roses and cakes while I was in the customs, but of course I was there and she was here. So that Bulgarian couple who was in front of us didn't talk any Romanian or English for that matter, but they saw that we had a baby. So the guy kept coming to us and saying, basically he was trying to get us to try to go ahead of others, to go ahead of the line. And he even stopped some of the police, gendarme, who were driving around, and he talked to them in Turkish because he spoke Turkish. And he tried to persuade them to let us pass in front. And they said, no problem, in a sense like it's not their problem that we're there with a baby. Indeed, there were many other people that had children of all possible ages, and people started walking around because they were getting out of their cars and they were bored, and the children were bored. So everybody was walking on those lines back and forth. An hour passed. 2 hours passed, 3 hours passed. Eventually we made it to the first checkpoint, the first of 4. We hadn't used the restroom since 4 in the morning, so this was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, so like more than 10 hours. I guess the lucky thing was that we were so sweaty that we eliminated the water like that. It felt super uncomfortable, I have to admit. And we were stuck. I said, let's turn around and let's go back and find a hotel to sleep, because for me it was already more than 24 hours being awake. She said, yeah, but you know, if we go to the hotel, when we get out, it's going to be the same. And you know, with that desperation of someone who is already in a bad situation, we just decided to bear through it, and at the end find ourselves on the way back home. So it was hot, the baby started crying, he was bored, he was hot, he wasn't okay, probably he felt our tension as well. We kept calling in Romania, telling her parents and my husband to wait just a bit longer, just a bit longer, just a bit longer. In the meantime, my dad called that he wanted to go to Bucharest the next day because he had a favor to ask from us. So while we were at the border, my dad called and I just declined his call, and then I sent him an SMS, can I call you when I'm in Bulgaria? Like, I thought that was going to be half an hour later, because Bulgaria is in the European Union, and then I have my European plan for calling, which is much better than international. And then he was sending me SMS that he wants to come to Bucharest. The story with my father is that recently we found a nice third, fourth hand automobile to buy for him. It's a Peugeot 207, and my aunt, his sister, had papers for the car ready, and he had his temporary numbers ready, so he wanted to come to Bucharest and take the car, but we were supposed to help him drive it out of Bucharest because he said he hasn't driven in a year and he was insecure about having a new car. And yeah, at the time when we talked about it, that was 3 weeks before, it seemed to us a reasonable thing to drive him out of Bucharest, but I didn't know it would overlap with all this what was going on in that particular day. So I said to my father that we would just talk when we can talk. My husband was getting worried. He kept asking, are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah, we're okay. We're just in the customs. I cannot tell you the feelings we had while there. As much as I try, I cannot describe them completely. It was despair, it was resignation, it was lots of being worried for the baby, because you know, we were grown-ups, but he was a tiny piece of baby. And at a certain point he started being very agitated and crying just because it was an unusual situation to go through for him. We weren't the only ones with babies, like I said before, with children. I mean, I don't know if others had very small babies in their cars, because probably they didn't take them out like we didn't either. Whenever we thought we are past the customs and we could go on our way, there was another checkpoint and another one. So we were moving at a pace of 10 automobiles per hour. The customs officer seemed very slow. Several times we begged the gendarme to let us ahead, and they just said no. And I'm not saying that we are more special than others, but what about all those cars with the Turkish number who were allowed to pass? We did see a car that had the diplomatic plates. That I understand, the diplomatic car, yeah, the CD. But there were several cars of Turkish number that were not stopped by the armed guards. They were just allowed to get in line in front of others. And that felt very frustrating. I mean, what if any of us or the baby had fainted? You might say that we knew what we were getting into. Well, we didn't. It's a country that I had never driven to. I was way too rushed to go there, so I didn't do any research, nor did I think it was necessary. And like I told you, I had no internet connectivity to show me that there is a 5-hour delay. You know, normally when I drive anywhere in Europe, if I see there's a 5-hour delay somewhere, I do my best to get off that road and either to stop and sleep or to find a way that is without delays. Eventually, we made it past everything. And at the last checkpoint, my friend could not hold her anger anymore, and she asked the guy who was checking our passport, "What is happening? Why is it like this?" And the guy said, "Don't you know? This week is Bayram, the Muslim holiday. In this week, 5 million cars cross the border either way, to Bulgaria or to Turkey. 5 million cars. I don't understand why there were separate checkpoints for passports and for car papers on such an extremely busy day. Why they couldn't change the system, why they couldn't open more lanes. 2 lanes were open in each checkpoint out of the 6 available. That I didn't really get. So I am in Turkey with my friend and her baby boy who is there. Show a little leg. And we've been waiting in the customs for 3 hours, and although we explained to the guards with guns that are over there, I don't want to film because you never know, that we have a 3-month-old baby and we really need to go on our way because we're very tired and we have no water and no food for the baby. Despite all this, we still have to wait. I am dead tired. I think I haven't slept in more than 24 hours. Same for her. And you know how it's like when you're a young mother, you just had your baby, you barely sleep anyway. So yeah, if you want to come to Turkey these days, stay home. So this guy in the Volkswagen Passat in front of us from Bulgaria, they were both very nice, husband and wife, and they even talked to the guards on our behalf, begging them to let us a bit in front, and the guards refused. I don't know what this is, but having a baby without water and food is not fun. We've been in a 4-kilometer traffic jam in front of the customs. We don't know why. We're passing from Turkey to Bulgaria and it's 34 degrees outside. We've had the car engine running for these 3 hours. We're both dead. Well, we are not allowed to pass. We've seen several cars with Turkish people, Turkish numbers in them, that are allowed to pass because it's their country, right? Like this truck is coming back. I don't know why it's coming on this wrong side of the road. Since everybody spent the day here, there's lots of toilet paper and garbage everywhere on the side of the road because people had to do their physiological needs. We haven't done ours and we really need to. Because we have nothing better to do, we're filming the cars that are trying to pass while other people have small children here. This is really unacceptable. So it's been more than 4 hours. We're still here. As you can see, today is a Friday and there is only one post open because why not? I mean, it's not like people have kids or stuff. One post. So this is 3 hours from my last check-in. We are still through the customs. We're still not in Bulgaria. Yep. Another hour later, we are still in the queue and still not in Bulgaria. This is 1 hour later. We're 20 meters further. That is 10 cars further. 10 cars passed in 1 hour. This is unbelievable. Everybody's super irritated, including us, including our little baby in the car. It's horrible. We kept promising ourselves and each other that we would pee as soon as we got out of the car. And when we did get out of the car, we stopped at the first gas station, and the plan was that she would go do her needs and then she would come back and wash the bottles of baby formula that were getting unsanitary already. And then she would come and walk around with the baby, and I would go do my needs and freshen up and brush my teeth because I hadn't brushed my teeth in a million years, and wash my face. So that was what kept us going, the idea that we would find a place where we could do all these things. We stop at the first gas station. She goes out to do what was planned, and she comes back and she says they are out of gas, so the pumps are closed. And because the pumps are closed, they also closed the bathroom. I insisted to wash the baby bottle and they just didn't let me in. So we went behind the building that was there. I just could not care anymore whether someone would see me, and I know it's embarrassing. It's something that I never thought I was going to do, but it was either that or doing it on the seat of the car. So after we were relieved, the three of us, we had a big envy for the baby because, you know, the baby could just do it in the Pampers and he would get cleaned. So he was the lucky one, and he was the one who could be laying flat on the car while the two of us had to sit upright for a very long time. So by the time that we were out of there and in Bulgaria, it was maybe 5 p.m. And then we checked the distance to home. We still had 300 kilometers to go, which may seem very little if you have, like in Germany, a highway without speed limit. 300 kilometers is, even for me, that's 2 hours. And I'm not a very fast driver. We called our families and we explained that we're going to be much later. And then we drove a bit further, but the baby was getting more and more fussy and not feeling okay. And she kept asking me to feed the baby, give the baby water, this, that. I gave him water and the water spilled all over him because I didn't screw the cap of the bottle properly. It was not going well, so I said to her, how about you let me drive again? Because there's 2 things you're doing that are annoying the fuck out of me. Firstly, you are telling me what to do. I don't know. I don't have children. I don't know how to deal with them. For me, I behave with them the same way I behave with my cats, but I shouldn't, because a cat is self-sufficient and the cats know my things and my cats don't growl all the time. And secondly, you are turning all the time whenever he screams. So whenever the baby would scream, she would go like this, turn at the baby, instead of looking at the road. And she said, this is my reflex as a mother. Whenever he screams, I have to see what's wrong. Even if I know in the back of my head that there's nothing wrong still. And I got behind the wheel to drive again, and we would promise each other, okay, so next time we see a gas station that has like a terrace outside, we're gonna stop and eat a real meal that's not chips and pretzels and cream croissants. And then we're gonna smoke a cigarette and have a coffee and freshen up, and he's gonna freshen up also. Well, we passed through many villages in Bulgaria, through all those mountain roads. There was absolutely no such place that had a terrace where we could stop for a while and relax for a while. We did find a place where I bought the last can of Red Bull for her to drink. So they had no other soft drinks. They only had a few cans of alcohol-free beer and 1 can of Red Bull and lots of cans of water. I'm guessing all the other people who drove by bought everything else on that particular day. And we wanted to stay there and smoke and drink. She would be drinking the Red Bull, I would be drinking my water. But there was this dude studying us who was in a car next to us, and she said that he looks very weird and fishy. And Bulgaria is mythically known for having all sorts of people who try to steal from you, scam you, rob you. So us Romanians, when we pass through Bulgaria, we try to stop as little possible and always keep the car under our eyes. And that's the reason why we couldn't stop in a hotel in Bulgaria. We were afraid to do that, seriously. So we just had to keep on driving and keep on driving. And by then, I was still sipping on my coffee that I bought in Starbucks in Turkey at 4 or 5 in the morning, so like 12 hours ago. And because I had a thermos cup, it was still a bit warm. Imagine that. Not that it mattered. I would have drank it cold also. So we drove and we drove and we drove. The day passed, nighttime came. Of course, the baby was feeling a bit better if his mother was with him. Eventually, we made it to a place called Silistra, that is where the border is with Romania and close to our hometown. And the GPS showed another 70 kilometers or something like that. And there, again, we waited in a line for 1.5 hours. Same thing. And I just couldn't anymore. I let her be behind the wheel. I mean, you couldn't really call it driving. She was just, in there with the baby. The baby was sleeping again. just a bit further and a bit further and a bit further. And I went out and I was asking the guards and other people what was going on, and they said, yeah, this is normal holiday traffic. If you would have arrived probably a bit later, it's going to be better, but right now it's not. Eventually we crossed. It was already past midnight. I had been awake more than 36 hours. She had been the same. I don't really count the fact that I slept in the plane half an hour or that she closed her eyes a bit in the car. I don't call that sleeping, sorry. And then we headed over to the ferry. And the ferry almost didn't bring us. We were the last car that could fit on the ferry. She was close to having a hysterical fit because it was too much. But eventually we really could fit as the last car on the ferry. The ferry took what seemed like an hour, but I think that was 15 minutes to cross. And we made it onto Romanian land. I don't even think that they checked our passports again. And then the long trip back home, we had to go through a city and then through a national road. And I could see that she was hesitating. I could see that she wasn't all right. And I kept insisting to drive and she kept refusing me. And eventually she said, okay, you know what? My eyes are closing. Please drive. So I got behind the wheel and I drove us home. Her family were waiting. My husband was there with them. And yeah, we ate a bit and then went to sleep. I slept from 3 in the morning until 10. It seemed like 5 minutes. So after all, I had been awake for 40 hours, I think. And we had been on the road for 25 hours. What was supposed to be 15 became 25. 13 became 25. And then the next morning, we had coffee. And then my husband and I went to my father's place. We got my father. We drove to Bucharest 2 hours. We had lunch with my aunt and uncle. Then we went with my aunt to pick up the car for my father. And then my father drove behind us and I drove in front to show him the way out of Bucharest. My husband could not drive because my uncle insisted to give him a couple of beers. So we got home eventually at 4 p.m. I took a shower, I washed my hair, and we were so tired that we couldn't even sleep. And then we watched a few of our favorite series to calm down, drank some tea. And I went to bed at 10 p.m. I woke up this morning at 8 because Floki was waking me up. Now I'm filming this and I hope that you enjoyed listening about my trip. And please do your homework and check. Before you go somewhere by car, check the traffic. That's my advice to you. Thank you very much for watching this. I wish you a lovely weekend and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.